Hello everyone, and welcome back to Matt's Mysteries. I'm Matt, also known as your 7th favorite cartoon thumb in a trench coat, and today I'm assembling a crack team to investigate another crack team. A team who may or may not have pulled off the greatest art heist in history. Before we get started, I just wanted to let everyone know that I have a new contact email. If you want to suggest a case, or would like me to tell your story in a bonus episode and don't want to leave it in a comment on one or more videos, send an email to mattsmysterystories@gmail.com. You don't need to leave your real name or anything, just give me a way to give you credit when it comes time to use the case or story in an episode. Anyway, if you like art, Boston, mystery, and duct tape, then say, you son of a bee, I'm in, because I'm going to tell you the story of the Gardner Museum heist. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, located in the heart of Boston, and is also a mouthful to say, is not just a repository of art. It is a living testament to the vision and passions of its founder. You guessed it, Isabella Stewart Gardner. Here's a history lesson. Born in 1840 to wealthy linen merchant David Stewart, Isabella grew up in Manhattan. There, she attended an academy for girls, studying music, fine art, dance, as well as both Italian and French. At the age of 16, her family uprooted and moved to Paris, where she continued her studies. In 1857, Isabella was whisked away to Milan, where she would encounter Giangiacomo Pol di Pizzoli's collection of Renaissance art. What's cool about this encounter was that the rooms featuring said art were designed in such a way to give the observer the sense that they were walking through the historical era the pieces arranged in the room took place in. I don't know, I thought it was neat. Suffice to say, Gardner was a patron of the arts and was a fierce advocate for cultural enrichment. After her marriage to Bostonian Jack Gardner, she traveled extensively across Central Europe as well as the Middle East, developing a deep appreciation for both art and culture. This passion culminated in the creation of her museum, which opened to the public in 1903. The museum is housed in a building that mirrors a 15th century Venetian palace, complete with a stunning, glass-covered central courtyard filled with beautiful gardens. Fun fact, this was the first of its kind in America at the time. It was known that Gardner was intimately involved in every facet of the museum's design and creation, leading the architect that she had hired, a man named Willard T. Sears, to joke that he was simply the structural engineer tasked with bringing Isabella's grand vision to life. Isabella meticulously created her collection, intending to create an experience that would reflect her eclectic tastes and love for beauty. The museum features over 2,500 works, including masterpieces by renowned artists such as Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Monet. Each gallery is arranged with a curator's eye for harmony and detail, inviting visitors to lose themselves in a world where art, architecture, and nature converge. It took her a year to install and arrange all of these pieces because they needed to be placed in the right room, in the right spot, to evoke the right feeling. More on the crazy detailed nature on how the art was arranged. One of the museum's most distinctive features is its approach to display. Gardner famously decreed that the artworks should remain in situ, meaning that the original arrangement should never be altered. You could also just say she's stubborn. Anyway, This unique philosophy extends to the museum's motto, which is,
Take nothing but pictures, leave nothing but footprints.
This principle underscores a profound respect for art as a shared cultural heritage. However, the essence of this motto took on a tragic irony on March the 18th, 1990, when the museum became the scene of one of the most notorious art heists in history. In the early hours of that day, a nondescript vehicle pulled up to the side entrance of the museum. From the vehicle, two men dressed as police officers approached the museum's entrance, pushing the buzzer to get the attention of the security guard inside. They informed the guard, Richard Abath, that they were responding to a disturbance, requesting that they be let inside to investigate. Rick wasn't aware of any sort of disturbance within the museum or the surrounding area. However, it was the early hours just after St. Patrick's Day in Boston, meaning there was at least one, though I'd wager there were likely math more, disturbances somewhere in the city. Anyway, given this and trusting their alleged authority, Abath let them in through the employee entrance, and this decision would not only break protocol, but would be one that would have, let's just say, creatively catastrophic consequences. I'll see myself out. Anyway, once inside, the officers asked if anyone else was present on guard duty, with Abath radioing to Randy Heston, the second guard on duty who was patrolling at the time. During this time, Abath noted that one of the officers' mustaches appeared to be fake, as if he were trying to conceal his identity in some sort of way. The second officer then stated that Abath looked suspiciously familiar, noting that his familiarity might mean that they may have an outstanding warrant for his arrest. They then demanded that Abath step away from his post at the watch desk to provide them with proper identification. With Abath away from his booth, and the only panic button intended to, panic, one officer swiftly subdued the security guard, forcing him against a wall, spreading his legs, and handcuffing him. Around this time, Heston finally arrived, and just as swiftly as he entered the room, he too was subdued and handcuffed by the other officer. I think you know where this is going. These officers were in fact imposters among us, and they demanded that the men reveal the location of the museum's valuables. I'd like to point out that this is a museum filled to the brim with exquisite and meticulously curated pieces of art and history, so the answer is probably everywhere that isn't where they currently are, or at least close to that. Listen, I've never been to this museum, but I've been to museums, so that conclusion somewhat makes sense to me. Anyway, the officers proceeded to wrap duct tape around the heads and eyes of both guards. They then led the men down into the museum's basement, handcuffing one of the poor and likely very confused security guards to a steam pipe, with the other being secured to a nearby workbench. I'd like to point out that these officers, and yes, I'm going to call them that a few more times because the Dr. Evil graphic is kind of funny, managed to navigate the museum's basement without any sort of directions. That's a very interesting coinkydink, but let's put a pin in it for now. I'd also like to point out that this entire process, from buzzing the door to handcuffing the men in the basement, took roughly 15 minutes. These officers were definitely not amateurs. For 81 minutes, the thieves navigated through the museum's galleries, methodically selecting pieces to steal. Infrared motion detectors recorded the movements of said thieves, and it noticed that it took roughly 13 minutes for the thieves to move to the first room of their planned heist. Was this delay to ensure that the real cops weren't on their way? Possibly. Anyway, their first hit was in the Dutch room, removing The Storm of the Sea of Galilee and A Lady and Gentleman in Black by Rembrandt from the wall that they hung on, cutting them from their respective frames. Oddly enough, they also cut out an oil painting self-portrait of Rembrandt himself, but opted to not steal it, leaving it leaning on a nearby cabinet. Maybe they changed their minds. Maybe it's because this work was done on a piece of wood and not canvas, making it super heavy. Maybe the judgmental eyes in the self-portrait were just too much for them. Take your pick. Anyway, instead of taking the judgy oil painting, the thieves opted to cut out a tiny and likely not as heavy self-portrait etching done by Rembrandt instead. They then left the Dutch room after removing Landscape with Obelisk by Govert Flinck and The Concert by Johann Vermeer from their respective frames, taking them along with an ancient Chinese gu, which is a bronze vessel from the Shang and Zhou dynasties, often used for drinking wine or for the offering of ritual libations. Hey, history, like art, is fun. Anyway, from here, the thieves worked their way over to the short gallery, attempting to unscrew the frame holding a Napoleonic flag. Thankfully for said flag, the screws were having absolutely none of the thieves' shenanigans, and they were unsuccessful in removing the frame to steal the work within. Instead, they dislodged the eagle finial above the flagpole, taking it with them, likely as a sort of
"Screw you, I took your hat"
to the flag and its screw bodyguard ensemble that thwarted them. They also stole 5 Degas sketches from this room. The last piece they'd apply the 5-finger discount to was Chez Tortoni by Manet, located in the Blue Room on the museum's first floor. This fact is kind of odd, considering that the same infrared motion sensors that mapped the movements of the thieves during the heist didn't pick up any footsteps in the Blue Room after the security guards passed through on their routine patrol. Again, that is some sort of coinkydink if I'd ever seen one. Are you ready for your jaw drop? The total estimated value of the stolen items soared to around 500 million, marking this incident as the largest art theft in history. I think I speak for most when I say that's a lot of clams. I, for one, would not download a car and suggest that you don't steal as well. But what would you do if you had 500 million smackaroonies? As the thieves prepared their grand escape, they actually went to the basement to check on the still very tied up security guards, making sure they were comfortable. I mean, they sort of roughhoused them at the beginning of this story and duct taped over their eyes and heads. Have you ever had to pull tape or a particularly sticky band-aid off your arm or leg, having it pseudo-wax you in the process? Picture that, but on your luscious locks atop your noggin. As a bald man, I for one don't have this problem, but I sympathize nonetheless. As they exited through a side door, leaving the museum in complete disarray, the thieves set off a series of events that would baffle investigators for decades. They took the video cassettes that contained the recording of their entrance to the museum at the beginning of the night, as well as several data printouts of their movements recorded by the infrared motion sensors throughout the museum. The museum's alarm system had failed to activate, a crucial oversight that allowed the heist to unfold undetected. It wouldn't be until later in the morning that anyone other than the still very tied up guards would be alerted to the theft. A new guard, set to start his watch and relieve the others, noted that something was off when neither Abath nor Heston responded to his request for admittance to the employee section of the museum. They then reached out to the museum's security director, and, upon arriving, said director used their keys to enter the building. When they noted that neither guard was at their required post, they then opted to call local authorities. It wouldn't take long for police to arrive and perform a preliminary sweep, eventually finding the guards, once again, still very tied up in the museum's basement. In the wake of the crime, the FBI launched an extensive investigation. However, despite their best efforts, the trail eventually went cold, leading to numerous theories about the identity of the thieves, the heist itself, and the fate of the stolen art. Here are some of them. One of the most compelling theories surrounding the Gardner Museum heist is that it was an inside job, orchestrated by someone with intimate knowledge of the museum's operations. Investigators have posited that the thieves displayed a remarkable familiarity with the museum's layout and security systems, suggesting that they simply couldn't have executed the heist without some sort of insider information. That means that this theory points to the possibility that one or more museum employees may have collaborated with the thieves, providing them with the necessary details to bypass security measures. Over the years, several former employees and associates have come under scrutiny, with some believed to have had the opportunity to study the museum's routines and weaknesses. Think about it: the precision of the theft, the timing, the selection of the artwork, and the escape routes indicates a level of planning that goes beyond mere chance. Rick Abath was a specific person of interest. His odd and somewhat suspicious behavior led authorities to believe that he may have had something to do with the heist. Specifically, while on patrol prior to the officers buzzing to be let in, Abath supposedly opened and then promptly closed a side door. This was something that some Gardner Museum heist inside job theorists believe was a signal of sorts, alerting the officers that it was go time. Abath maintained that this was merely to ensure that the door was properly locked, and that he had completed this precautionary measure countless times before. However, it must be known that the computer printouts that record museum activity would have recorded this frequent door opening and closing endeavor, leading Abath's supervisors to reprimand him and keep that behavior from continuing. It should also be noted that nothing of substance pointing to Abath as a participant has been discovered by the FBI, leading to him eventually being dropped as a suspect. Another rather intriguing theory suggests the involvement of organized crime in the heist. Given the enormous value of the stolen artworks, investigators initially suspected that the pieces might have been sold on the black market or used as leverage in criminal dealings. Boston's notorious criminal underworld provides fertile ground for such speculation, leading to theories of connections between the heist and notorious mob figures, including members of the Winter Hill Gang, as well as the infamous Whitey Bulger. It was known that Bulger had strong ties with Boston police, meaning he could have acquired police uniforms to disguise the thieves in anticipation of the heist. Beyond that, some speculate that he could have even orchestrated the heist in such a way that two actual officers could have been the thieves, with one wearing the fake stash as a means of disguising himself from potential identification. Bulger was said to have ties with the Provisional Irish Republican Army, or IRA. FBI agent Thomas McShane posited that the act of tripping the museum's fire alarm moments before initiating the heist served as a calling card for the IRA. On top of this, they allegedly had operatives in the Boston area at the time of the heist, meaning it's somewhat possible that they could have had some involvement in the theft of $500 million smackaroos worth of art, possibly tying Whitey Bulger to the whole thing as well. Despite extensive investigations into the possible links between organized crime and the heist, no definitive evidence has emerged to support these claims. Our third, particularly captivating theory posits that the stolen artworks were not taken for resale, but rather as a bargaining chip in a larger scheme of criminal activity. Get this, in 1994, museum director Anne Hawley received an anonymous letter. The writer of this letter claimed to serve as a negotiator of sorts, stating that the art was stolen by the thieves in an attempt to negotiate leniency in criminal charges, or for other favors from powerful individuals. They then stated that the pieces were being held in a climate-controlled,
non-common law country.
The writer then demanded $2.6 million as well as immunity from any and all prosecution in exchange for the stolen art, and that if the museum was indeed interested in negotiating, that they should print a coded message in the Boston Globe indicating just that. Hawley did reach out to the FBI, who in turn reached out to the Globe, and a coded message was indeed left for the alleged possessor of the stolen art. This message was printed in the May 1st edition of the Globe, with a response coming just a few days later. In the second letter, the writer acknowledged the interest the museum had in retrieving the art. However, they also stressed that they had become wary of involving themselves in what they considered to be a massive investigation, requesting time to reevaluate before moving forward. I mean, duh. Of course it was a massive investigation. You don't see $500 million worth of art vanishing in a D.B. Cooper level act of thievery every day. Regardless, Hawley never heard back from the writer of these letters, meaning that we'll never know if the writer was truthful in any capacity to begin with. In the years following the heist, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum undertook significant changes to improve security and honor the memory of the lost artwork. Despite the absence of the stolen pieces, the museum has continued to thrive, attracting millions of visitors every year. It has altered some exhibitions to reflect the absence of the stolen works, with the empty frames serving as a poignant reminder of what was lost. On top of this, the museum has offered a $10 million reward for information leading to the recovery of the stolen art, underscoring its commitment to reclaiming its treasures. If you ask me, your 7th favorite cartoon thumb in a trench coat, and 11th favorite pretend detective, I think there is certainly substance to a number of these theories, though no conclusive evidence has presented itself to confidently identify the thieves and recover the art. For the thieves to know the layout of the museum well enough to lead the guards away from the only panic button, subdue them, and lead them down into the basement without direction leads me to believe that someone on the inside is likely involved, though I can't say exactly in what capacity. I'll also admit the mob angle is super tantalizing because they'd certainly have the resources, manpower, and capability to commit such a robbery, including acquiring the police uniforms used to lull the guards into a false state of security. I suppose we could combine both of these theories together, meaning someone on the inside worked with, or was an operative for, the mob or some sort of organized crime group, with the collective orchestrating the most expensive art heist in history. Again, it's pure speculation on my part, but I'm also not a legitimate investigator or some sort of smart person. So, what do I know? As of now, the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, I'm so happy that's the last time I have to say it, heist remains an unsolved mystery, a compelling tale of greed, ambition, and loss. Despite decades of investigation, the fate of the stolen artworks continues to elude authorities, and the individuals responsible for this audacious crime have yet to be identified. Theories about the heist, ranging from organized crime to the possibility of an inside job, each add another layer to this intricate tapestry. An onion, if you will. The lingering questions serve as a testament to the intersection of art, crime, and human curiosity, reminding us that while the allure of art can inspire beauty, it can also provoke a profound darkness. I'll leave you with a series of questions. Will the art ever be recovered? And, almost as importantly, who pulled off the seemingly perfect heist? And how? With all of that said, what do you think happened? Thank you so much for tuning in to today's mystery. If there's a mystery you'd like me to cover, don't hesitate to leave a comment on the video. If you like what you saw and are interested in learning about more mysteries from a cartoon detective, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll post once a week and will occasionally post twice if I'm feeling extra rowdy. So get ready because there are a lot of mysteries for me to share. Until the next one, this is Matt telling you to stay mysterious.